Yeah, that's right. Welcome in, welcome back, folks, to something brand new. This is a segment. I may end up calling it Domer Debates, and this would be episode 1 of that. Settle in. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be exciting. It's definitely something new on this channel, something healthy, and something I think more Notre Dame media folks should engage in. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up. That helps me as well. Notifications on, you know why. That way you'll be alerted every time a new episode drops. You don't want to miss it. Twitter, search bar, Always Irish, or at Always Irish Inc. Emails, alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Audio only anywhere you want me. You could get me. Call in line 312-988-15. Tell Johnny all you heard and seen. That's the deal. So here's the genesis of this. My closest friend in the last 20 years, Pat, born and raised Chicago guy in the shadow of Midway Airport, Chicago Catholic League guy, diehard traditional Notre Dame family, 20 years, been in the guy's wedding, all that. He started calling in the Friday night shows. I started to notice when Pat would call in, it generated a reaction. Not just because him and I knew each other and the back and forth between old drinking buddies. His opinion, delivery, and argumentative stylings spark people to think and react with him and against him. When he would call in, then the lines would light up in response right after. The chat livened up. I noticed this, but I thought maybe it's just me because he's my guy, whatever. And then after the shows, other people noticed and they asked for more of them. And you all know me. I'm nothing if not a man of the Irish people. So at your own risk, here's Patrick Cotter. You wanted him. You got him. People are going to, I don't know if they're going to regret this, Pat. They wanted more of you.
I find it hard to believe there's very few people that ever actually want more of me. Ask all the girls I dated in college.
But did it ever occur to you that people sometimes want more of things they don't agree with? Sometimes that's more fun.
And today, no. Usually people don't want to hear things they disagree with. So that's refreshing.
I guess that's a good point. But I really do like the fact that not only did you generate interaction when you called the program, but it was both ways. That's very healthy. You had half the people like, this Pat guy knows what he's talking about. And the other half were like, where'd this guy come from?
I'm a total tool or whatever. It cracks me up.
You could be, but I could still agree with you. And you could be both could be true at the same time. You could be a tool that I agree with. You could be a useful tool, right?
This is all very true.
But Pat, people just like, I think the way you argue, you know how to put together a logical argument and defend it and all that. And it's something you're good at and it helps in your career. The fact that it just happens to be that the one guy that I've known the longest that calls in generates the interaction, I don't know what to make of that. Maybe some of it is rapport, but some of it is ideas. People like the way I argue and people like the way you argue.
Yeah, I rapport helps, obviously knowing the people you're talking to, but I watch the way you interact with your callers. I just started calling it. I think the first time I ever called in was when Brian Kelly left. But I've been listening to you and listening to you interact with your fans. So I think just naturally you're a good interviewer to start. So not to actually kiss up to you, because God knows I don't actually like you, but
yeah, that's fair. And there's a lot of reasons for that too.
A lot of reasons.
You know what, Pat, being self-aware goes a long way. There's a lot of that both ways.
Yes,
I understand my personality limitations. I know them. You got to lean into them. So even before the Tommy Reese to Alabama news officially became a thing and was rumored about, you and I had talked about doing something like this after the couple call-in things and the traffic it generated. So then now this news happens, and it is the perfect topic to get into because I think there's a lot of legitimate wiggle room for debate and varying opinions that could be fair here. It's a complicated topic.
That's what's great about this topic, because I think in the long run, what happened, and I think both of you and I agree on this, what happened, it's fine. Okay. I'm not mad. And I'm a Tommy supporter. I wanted Tommy to succeed at Notre Dame, but I'm not mad. I actually think Tommy made the right decision. And I think Notre Dame, Tommy staying would have done well. And I think Notre Dame, Tommy leaving, it gives them an opportunity to continue their march and maybe shed a Brian Kelly stereotype, but I don't think it actually exists. And that's something that I think we can argue.
Interesting.
Today.
Yep. That's a very interesting thing. Yeah. And that's on the list. So we're going to get there. So
yeah,
you're right. This is the perfect topic to cover. And I think it's one of those things where it's kind of like politics now, where people really want you to be all this way or all that way. And there isn't much. What if you're just in the middle, like you said, and you're like, if he stayed, I was excited to see him work with this new talent. If he leaves, it frees Freeman up to put his own DNA on this more, and then Tommy could go reach his dreams or whatever.
And that's, if you want to get, this is the first part I disagree with you on. I don't think this leaving makes it now the offense is Marcus Freeman's. He's the head coach, man. It is his football team. So one of the things you asked me was, is the Tommy Reese, is he to blame for the offense? Is he to blame for the offense? Right.
That's not what I asked you. I asked you when the offense hasn't been good enough.
Doesn't perform when the offense doesn't perform.
What are we blaming that on? And all right, let's get there. That's a little bit down the list.
Okay. All right. And your show, you drive.
But it's tough. All of these things are interwoven and it's tough. All right, let's start with this. I want to establish a baseline here.
Yeah.
When the rumor came out, the tweet rumors came out about Alabama's interest before it was done, but they said he was going to interview, right? I went on the show and said exactly what you just said. If he stays, I am excited to see him work with increased offensive talent, better quarterback room, wide receiver rooms getting healthier, that kind of deal. Now, I do admit my opinion on that moved a little bit. The more talent we got, and with Hartman, the more I got excited to see Rees working in what I perceived to be a healthier, newer dynamic. Before, I was more like, this is a lot of what we've seen, and I'm kind of over it. I admit I became more rejuvenated in some excitement to see Tommy work with the new stuff. Yeah. So I do admit that evolved over the year, and with the increased talent, I started thinking maybe this will be a different thing I was excited for. But then I figured if he does leave, it's probably a good move for him, going not somewhere lateral or lower, but somewhere with the profile. Alabama, it's a good spot. And then I figured, all right, Freeman could do more things his own way. And like you said, whether it's practical or perceptual, that big last chunk of Brian Kelly-ness just went to Alabama. How much of that is practical versus perceptual with this fan base matters?
100% perceptual.
But it matters because here's why. Here's why it matters. Here's why it matters. Because there was, with Tommy Reese, I heard it every day on my show, the built-in excuse of it's Brian Kelly-ness, and Freeman needs to free himself of the Brian Kelly-ness. And whenever that offense doesn't work, it isn't just Reese, it's the link to the Kelly-ness. Now, some of that could be my fan base because a lot of them don't like Kelly. And I don't know where they
I don't know anybody. At this point,
where would they get that idea?
Outside of a couple trolls that are in there in your fan base, I don't think anybody actually likes Kelly that at least I talk to. But it's 100% perceptual. And I'll ask you, there's three names. Chris O'Leary. Does Chris O'Leary need to go? Does Mike Mickens need to go? Does the trainer, does he need to go?
But those are not the offensive coordinator. But you were talking about perception. Offensive coordinator, people recognize. The trainer in the background, they don't. It makes perfect logical sense. You're looking at the main thing that gets the attention, not the back end stuff.
At the end of the day, who's the head coach of this football team? Is it Marcus Freeman or is it Tommy Reese? Is it Brian Kelly or is it Marcus Freeman?
Right, but you can't. But if
that's why it's a perception. But that's why it's a perception.
But it's woven into practicality in this way, Pat. You and I both admit Brian Kelly did a poor job recruiting and developing this program the last
100%.
few years, right?
100%.
We both agree on that. So then
Yes.
how can you just flip a switch and say now that roster that Marcus is dealing with is instantly his problem because Kelly's in the swamp? He's still dealing with some of Kelly's issues.
Yeah, he's dealing
So
with his
that
roster.
leaks into it.
But is it his roster issues? Is it his poor recruiting and his poor management of that roster that he's dealing with? Or is it his offensive coordinator who rejected Kelly, said, I'm not going to LSU, I'm going to stay at Notre Dame?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I do like that if he did go, it ended up being with Saban and not Kelly down
Exactly.
to the SEC. That
tells you all you need to know about what Tommy Reese thought of Brian Kelly.
That's a fair point. I think the struggle here is, and I admit this, I have a very hard time when I look at our offense failing in the biggest moments or biggest games, whatever, the playoff, putting up 3 points. You go undefeated all year. That's awesome. You put up a 3 spot. Awesome.
Yeah.
But like you have all that. I am not behind the scenes enough to be able to parse out a percentage. If I don't like the way this offense is going, how much of it is Tommy versus what he's dealing with, the talent or the other recruiting? Like, I don't know how to put a percentage on what wasn't good enough is on Tommy versus anything else. I don't know who can.
Well, I'm a stand up. It's the head coach's team. It's the head coach's team. It's on him at the end of the day. So I don't care if it's Brian Kelly's roster issue. It was Brian Kelly's roster issue when he replaced Charlie Weiss. It was Charlie Weiss's roster issue when he replaced Tyrone Willingham. Those guys were gone. Whoever the head coach is has to take ownership of it now. And that's just it. You can't say, oh, well, what I inherited was so bad. I mean, come on.
But it doesn't.
Not how this works.
But it doesn't. That's not a catch-all for anything that goes wrong. You lose to Marshall and I point to Brian Kelly. It is a factor among many factors.
You lose to Marshall, you point at yourself.
Right?
You lose at Stanford, you point at yourself. Freeman did that. Freeman actually did that. And he said, this isn't we have to continue to the plan. We have to rethink the plan. After the Marshall game, he actually said that. He said, we can't just keep doing what we're doing. We just got our butts kicked by Marshall. All right. That's a coach actually realizing, all right, I thought I had a plan. Maybe it's not working. Maybe I need to revisit it. And that was actually really refreshing to hear from a coach say. And that told me right there, he doesn't care about Brian Kelly. He's not worried about the roster that Brian Kelly left. He's worried about the pieces he have and what he could do to make them win. And it wasn't, I have Tommy Reese who's loyal to Brian Kelly and not me, or is a cyborg of Brian Kelly and his inabilities to call the offensive game plan as a result of Brian Kelly. That's not it. This is the team I have. Let me ask you this question. Do you think when Jack Sawbrick asked Marcus Freeman to be the head coach of Notre Dame, he said, you have to take Tommy Reese on? Or did he say, what do you think about Tommy Reese?
No, I believe that it was Freeman's choice. Reese was not foisted on him. It was
exactly.
And
exactly.
I feel like, think about that staff. Like the week that Freeman got hired, there was a lot of Notre Dame and Kelly leftovers at that time still in the room.
How many guys remained?
And a lot of people thought, man, that might be a comfortable way to ease in year one. You have Notre Dame guys around you. Tommy's been a Notre Dame guy forever. That can help kind of soften some of the learning curve of Freeman into the head chair and all that. There was some comfort, I felt like, initially of having the Notre Dame-ness. You look a year later, Marcus is starting to be on an island where it's more Marcus's DNA.
A year later.
That's where I feel like that pressure's cranking.
But, John, this first season, how many offensive coaches returned from Brian Kelly's staff?
I think
one.
I can't
Tommy Reese.
look. I can't.
Tommy Reese.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, when I'm looking at all these different pieces, the biggest lightning rod is that offensive coordinator. And,
sure.
Can I ask you this?
Position. Yeah.
Can I ask you this? Just generally speaking. How would this whole conversation be different if Tommy Reese wasn't a Notre Dame guy forever? I feel like it's all ramped up one way or the other more because we watched him grow up here. What if he was just Timmy Reese and he didn't play a year and have all that history?
Well, that's actually a great point because I think the people who hate Tommy Reese from 2011 and 2013 and how he performed as a player. Not how he's actually coached, but how he's performed as a player. So I do think the fact that he's a returning domer plays an impact to how people react to him, and his association with Brian Kelly definitely hurts him.
I think that goes good and bad because I've seen that work both ways.
Oh,
where
yeah.
a lot of people don't want the Notre Dame guy to leave, that kind of thing. So I also wonder that with him and the whole Notre Dame thing. Everything we do gets under the magnifying glass, like under the microscope. So I guess somebody said to me, Pat, on my stream, Notre Dame fans, losing Rees is going to soon feel like losing the girlfriend, and you don't know what you lost until you no longer have her. Okay. My response to that was, this would be different if what I had was a supermodel and was elite. But what I had wasn't that. It was okay. And if I was dating a girl in that scenario, it would be okay, but not like marriage material. And I'd keep my eyes out for something hotter and better, but it's fine for now. This would be different if what I had was elite. How many tiers can a guy drop for potential of years 7, 8, 9, and 10 being elite when the first 6 weren't? Well, I was open to him coming back too. But he didn't, so I'm not crying over potential.
Okay, you're right. Okay, that's fine. You cannot cry over potential. I think the way my wife's about. There's my wife's ass.
Yeah. Pick that up, Lauren. I dropped that book.
I don't think she remembered I was going to be live with you today. Can
you move, Pat? She's taking her time now, dude. Look at her. Oh, I don't think I can find this.
God. Oh, wonderful.
This is an important work meeting.
Oh, wonderful. What were we talking about? Oh, potential and crying tears over potential.
Yeah, because wait. You're not selling me that it's what I've already seen that I should miss.
Oh, right. You? And originally your statement was you've seen what you know what you have with Tommy. That was your original statement. We can go back and watch your show. But I can't
bank on potential.
Why?
Because
hold on. Time out. I'm gonna back you up. When Notre Dame hired Marcus Freeman, what were you banking on?
I was banking on
a first-year defensive coordinator at Notre Dame.
I was banking on new. I was banking on a new way to look at the entire thing, a new way to re-energize the program, a new way to recruit, a new way to get our message out, a whole new way of operation is what I was advocating for, because the old way failed us.
But you've never seen any of that in action. So what was it? It was potential.
But
Freeman was showing you potential.
But I've seen more results in the way, for instance, Marcus recruits. I've seen a lot more example of that on the elite side than I've seen from 6 years of Tommy's offense on the elite side.
How would you categorize Marcus's defense in his 1 year as defensive coordinator?
Just not what I wanted, not as good as I wanted.
Right. So the recruiting side, he's got the chops, no doubt. But the coaching side, and matter of fact, you go through his resume, and this isn't meant to be a knock. I'm a Marcus guy. I'm a full-on supporter of Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
But go through his resume. Was it really that great, or did he climb, which a lot of coaches end up doing, like an Ed Orgeron? Did he climb because he can get the players?
Yeah.
Did he climb because he can recruit? Fair.
But it's like, I want to make sure I'm clear. I did not enter this Bama discussion with Tommy saying 100% he needs to go. He's dead to me. I'm done with him. I was perfectly open to seeing him work with this newer talent. But once he's out the door, I'm only going to cry about that girlfriend if it was perfect and elite and I lost it. Like, I'm not losing. I know Notre Dame fans, Pat, losing sleep because of this Tommy thing. They're upset. They don't know what's going to happen. Like, it could be a lot worse. Crazy. Like, this is just about to take off, and now you ruin that.
That's
like,
just crazy.
And I'm saying, if he would have come back, I was excited to see him work with the better talent, but he didn't. And so now I'm not crying over 2 years of Wimbush where his numbers went down the more he played here. 2 years of Book and the numbers went down the longer he played here. Like, and then Cohn and Buckner Pine, like, I was open to seeing it, but I'm not losing any sleep over it.
I mean,
just not.
Were any of those guys good though?
Right.
Were
But that's
any of them considered elite? Like if you want to go back through
Wimbush was a top 50 guy, Pat. When he was recruited, Wimbush, I looked it up last night for the purposes of this. He was a
the
top
dude couldn't
50
throw the
recruit.
ball. The dude couldn't throw the ball.
It's wild now. But then here's the other thing. This is perfect. Here we go. You're leading me to my next thing. Oh, John, how are you going to blame Tommy Reese for how the offense wasn't electric when you're running him out there with Drew freaking Pine, who's me and your size or whatever? Fine. Okay, I get that. Why are we recruiting and giving a guy my size a scholarship to be a quarterback in Notre Dame anyway?
That's where I do.
Kelly or is that Reese?
But that's exactly.
Why is a guy my size out there?
All right,
get better guys to begin with.
This is the perfect scenario then, because then look at it. You actually do have a line drawn in the sand here before Kelly and after Kelly. Before Kelly, you're getting Drew Pine, you're getting Buckner. Buckner is actually a highly rated recruit. Buckner wasn't a throwing guy like Pine was.
Yeah, 8 years ago when he was a high school recruit.
Right, I know. But I'm saying, so Buckner was actually a pretty good recruit. So, but then Book and Wimbush, all those guys, there was an obvious difference that happened with those guys. The obvious difference in the recruiting strategy with those guys. And now in 1 year, you were in on the conversation with the kid that went to UCLA, and he went to UCLA. He ended up going there for money. You have a commitment from CJ Carr, one of the best rated quarterbacks coming out in his class. You got the best rated transfer quarterback this year in Sam Hartman. All of this is Tommy Reese. All right. So you can actually see, and then the Minchie commit this year, after they went full in on the kid that Dante Moore, they went full in on that kid, and he bails because his dad wanted a paycheck. They go and they find Minchie at Pitt, and they work on him and work on him and work on him and bring him to Notre Dame to actually make sure we have a kid in this class. Otherwise, we were really up the creek at that point. Yep. So you can see there is a line in the sand. So I agree. That's
a good point.
Tommy's potential, okay? I 100% agree. Tommy was all about potential. But when the conditions started to change from Brian Kelly to Marcus Freeman, that's when you truly saw. If this was 2 years ago, I would have said, adios, Tommy. Bye. I don't care. Good.
So then, all right. So I agree with you. And you can literally make the calendar delineation there. So then worse. Does some of this play into Tommy looking for other opportunities? Because he's always held hostage to the whim of whatever else is going on then at Notre Dame. Like we're saying under those old recruits and everything that it was Kelly pulling those strings mostly. And that's why the line,
of course he is. I mean, we know the stories. He wouldn't meet with a player.
Yeah.
He wouldn't travel. He wouldn't, unless a kid was ready to commit. I mean, what was the Deshaun Kaiser? What was the Deshaun Kaiser story? I think the first time he said he met him was his first day on campus.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
And Kelly said 2 words to him as passing, and he kept on. But he went.
And then he said
he loved Notre Dame.
And the first time he actually had a real conversation was not with Deshaun Kaiser, was when the other kid got hurt in the Texas game or the game after the Texas game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your head coach, and you expect to get quarterbacks.
So is your position that it's just a little disappointing because things were starting to all line up in a positive direction. He had more autonomy with the recruiting and to do his own thing. And so that now was the time it was really going to get exciting. And it's just now we're not going to see it. Is that basically your point?
Well, no, we're going to get to see it. We're just going to get to see it at Alabama.
Right. But that's another thing, Pat, I'm really going to struggle with. If he lights it up with all this Bama-ness, I'm going to have a hard time being able to correlate what that would have looked like at Notre Dame, because no one's going to tell me if they score 50 a game, we would have too, because of Magic Tommy without the same talent.
No,
how are we supposed to be able to parse it out?
It's 100% talent. It's just talent. Notre Dame is not on the same tier. They're not. And any Notre Dame fan out there that's saying that Notre Dame can beat these teams, they can't, because they haven't. And until they actually start to do it consistently, Notre Dame cannot beat these teams. And you're going to put yourself in a better position as a Notre Dame fan if you admit that fact and let Marcus Freeman do what he's promised to do, which he has shown he is doing in his first recruiting class with his rankings of not the top 25 or top 10, recruited class, but his blue chip ranking and the actual deep talent he
83,
brought
yep,
into this
yep,
team, that is something Notre Dame hasn't seen since Lou Holtz
yep.
was the head
And you
coach.
want to know why that's a big
And that's
deal?
how you close the gap.
And that here's the other thing I like about that. You're talking about that 83% blue chip rate. You got to understand, a handful of years ago, Kelly was in the high 40s. So we're looking at a difference in blue chip rate between under 50 and 83.
You didn't just
not
Kelly's
close.
recruiting classes where he had 2 or 3 really good kids, 2 or 3, and then he had 20 to 22 guys who were bodies. They could play, but they weren't going to wow you. Okay, they could play, they could do their job, and then when you go and play in Ohio State, you go play in Alabama, Georgia, or Clemson, they get punched in the mouth. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But what Freeman just brought into this program is completely different. He got 24 bodies who could play football on a high level.
Yep. And that's where I did catch some pushback because 247 redid some of the rankings. Notre Dame guys dropped, and then the whole class dropped, whatever. And then people started telling me, John, this is essentially a high-level Brian Kelly class. That's all it is. You were all about Freeman being a better recruiter. And I'm saying you're looking at it too superficially to not
level Brian. That. I love that, a high-level Brian Kelly class.
Oh yeah,
that means that Marcus Freeman's first class is the best level that Brian Kelly could get to.
Here's the other reason that it's great. Here's the other reason that 83% blue chip rate matters to me so much. When we get into this new playoff format, you're going to have to play every week for about a month here to win a championship. That's a war of attrition against top 10 teams. You are going to need that depth. And that's where I see that really, really mattering a lot, is in that way. So what do you feel like this frees Tommy up, not only because you're going to more talent, but to get away from the shadow of the dome? Or is that just a perceptual thing of me because of all my Notre Dameness? Or do you think it will really free this guy up to not have the extra scrutiny of pains in the ass like me in my basement, work just all Notre Dame land?
Hey, brother, I love you, but he's going to Alabama. There's probably 10 for every one of you there. Okay, he's going to the SEC South, man. He's getting into it. Here, my thing. This is such a good opportunity for Tommy Reese. He is going to go and coach with the guy. Okay, he is going to be with the guy Kirby Smart. He's doing it at Georgia right now, but. Who just got the #1 recruiting class? Who got the Keeleys, and he got the guy from that offensive tackle from Iowa at the last minute. I mean, Saban is still doing Saban stuff.
I was told Notre Dame. I was like, why isn't Notre Dame going after the best offensive line prospect in Iowa? And I was told all summer he's an Iowa guy. He wants to stay home in the corn and all that. And then at the last,
and now he's in Alabama.
And now
he's in Alabama, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, damn, it's nice and warm down here.
They don't pay me. They don't pay my NIL in corn shillings. It's actual money. Beautiful.
So, but Tommy, this is like I don't know the dynamic between Marcus Freeman and his assistant coaches yet. Not enough has come out. Not enough guys have said anything. But you know what Saban is like. You have seen what Saban is like with his assistant coaches. Remember the episode where he's yelling at Lane Kiffin on the sideline, and then the people are questioning about it after the game, and he goes, he needed his ass chewed out because he needed his ass chewed out, so I chewed his ass out. And that's Saban. And I think that's what Tommy needs, because I think Tommy has the potential to be a really great offensive coordinator. Tommy wants to be more. Tommy wants to be a head coach again, or not again, but Tommy wants to be a head coach.
Do you see that in Tommy?
I don't know yet. I don't know.
Like,
he hasn't sold me as an offensive coordinator yet. I'm high in his potential, but he hasn't sold me as an offensive coordinator yet.
When I look, there is a lot of this. I just think we don't see behind the scenes. All of these recruits and their families and parents all have nothing but rave reviews about the way Tommy recruits in a living room and in these
I totally believe it.
Right.
Who's more genuine than Tommy Reese? And I mean that seriously. For recruiting the kids in Notre Dame, who could be a more genuine person to bring in your living room? A quarterback than a guy who lived it under some of the biggest scrutiny anyone has ever had, because everybody knew Tommy was not supposed to be the starting quarterback in Notre Dame. He did not have the physical skills, but because of how poor recruiting was, that's all they had. And people forget, Tommy Reese was not a Brian Kelly commit. He was a Charlie Weiss commit.
That's a good point too. That's a really good point. And so the head coaching stuff with him is interesting because a lot of his personality stuff people love isn't front and center the way it is with like your head coach when you have one like Freeman. And I've heard a lot of him wanting to be a head coach. And I genuinely didn't know that was the priority. I thought maybe he wanted to be an NFL OC or something. I didn't know he wanted to be a head coach, but like good for him.
Okay. Outside of like Harry Heastan, who do you know gets into coaching that wants to be a position coach or an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator all their career?
I don't think all these guys want to be that guy. Some guys like working on their own thing and not having to take all the bullets, Pat. And you make a lot of money.
That may be
work with the tight ends, and then let the head guy take all the bullets in the press conference.
That may be true. I'm sure those scenarios do exist, but I think the vast majority of these guys want to become head coaches, and probably most of them want to become head coaches in the NFL. But a good chunk of them will be just as happy to be the head coach of an Alabama or a Notre Dame or an Ohio State, because you get all the prestige that you get. But I absolutely believe Tommy wants to be a head coach. I think this is a great move for Tommy for his career. He's 30 years old, and he's going to be the offensive coordinator of the biggest college football program in the country. All right.
Now, you want to talk about the Notre Dame pressure? Look, what's going to happen if
Alabama
light it up down there
and
this is why every week?
This is why I'm saying that
going to get hot.
Tommy did an interview. Tommy did an interview when Marcus Freeman was hired about how he was going to go out with some friends in Chicago. And they were doing like a Zoom call or something. And Freeman was on there, and Freeman was saying, well, I'm going to go see this kid in Michigan. So I'm going to drive up there. And Tommy's like, oh, damn, man, if he's hitting the road, I got to hit the road. He calls his friends, he cancels his plans, and he goes and he visits some kid in Illinois. All right. That's what I don't remember the exact specifics of the story, but he said something like that. He goes, if this guy's on the road, I need to be on the road. So Tommy responds to that pressure. And so he clearly responds to it well enough that Freeman was on board with Tommy, well enough that Nick Saban, the guru of coaching in college football, is okay with bringing Tommy there on his potential. Because I agree, Tommy's offense at Notre Dame has not proven to be the offense that a Nick Saban would expect. When you're the 41st ranked offense in the country, Nick Saban wants to be in top 12. As far as offense is concerned. And so he's not bringing in a top 12 offensive coordinator right now. He's bringing in the potential of a top 12 offensive coordinator. And so I think Tommy
and then he's banking on his experience and all that he's accomplished combined with that talent to give him the support to be able to flourish in a way that he wasn't here. And that's the deal. And if it does all work, then we're sitting there frustrated like we didn't get any of that here. And there goes the guy.
And Tommy, right, exactly. Well, you know what? Fine. Because here's the thing. I do believe if Tommy Reese, I think Marcus Freeman has a limited shelf life at Notre Dame. And I don't say that because Ohio State.
You would never say Frank has a limited shelf life at Notre Dame.
Your mug might not, but Frank had a limited shelf life at Notre Dame. Era had a limited shelf life at Notre Dame. Lou got pushed out, but he had a limited shelf life at Notre Dame. And even Brian Kelly quit. So
what's that window then, Pat? Or what did he got a 6-year deal, I believe. Where's the window here where you start to expect things? 1 year after this one?
8 to 10.
8 to 10.
For Marcus?
Yeah.
Year 3. I'm sorry, that's the standard. Right? You either have a standard or you don't.
The perceptual standard. It's the factual
it's the factual standard.
Yeah.
Outside of Newt, it's year 3.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So I'm sorry. It's year 3. And
is it year 3 the first year of the new format too? 2024.
Yes,
wow.
Yes,
so this all lines up. And then you would also have a couple more years of Kelly recruiting out and Freeman getting them guys in with that chip rate. That all kind of lines up.